In theory, in Hinduism, women are very empowered. Uh, Shakti, the feminine force, is a central component of Hindu philosophy and theology, as reflected in a large number of very prominent and powerful and popular Hindu goddesses. In practice, however, women in Indian history have been oppressed and exploited and forced to submit to men and regarded as effectively Shudra, members of the lowest caste. There are changes in modern India, especially among the middle class and upper class women in cities, in terms of empowerment and education, but there are still a lot of problems with sexism and with patriarchy, with the power of men over women and the use of that power to oppress and exploit females. These are a couple images of female goddesses, and this shows the other side of women in India. A bride who was lit on fire because her parents had fallen behind in the payment of a dowry, the dowry being money and goods given to the family of a bride to the family of the groom. And these sorts of incidents are unfortunately relatively common, especially in rural areas. The Hindus and Muslims have had a rather contentious relationship during their history. The Mughals first arrived in the 13th century and over time expanded their influence until at the peak of the Mughal Empire they ruled most of the subcontinent, and they also are responsible for the building of the Taj Mahal, which is the most famous of all Indian structures. The relations have generally been peaceful. There have been periods, however, of great conflict. There were some Mughal emperors which promoted coexistence between Hindus and Muslims, others which sought to persecute Hindus and to force conversion to Islam. As we'll see when we discuss Islam, there is an enormous difference in terms of theology between Hinduism, which has many different deities and depicts them in all kinds of colorful and extravagant ways, versus Islam, which is emphatically monotheistic, believes in only one God, and forbids any depiction of that deity whatsoever. The most recent and most catastrophic bloodshed occurred in 1947, when India was about to achieve its independence, and it had been envisioned to be a unified country consisting of Muslims and Hindus, which would encompass modern-day India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. However, people living in the region that became Pakistan wanted to be independent, and so instead of having a unified country, a partition occurred. There was a great deal of fighting. People were forced to leave their homes. People living on what became the Indian side, if they were Muslims, many were ethnically cleansed, and vice versa for people living on what became the Pakistani side, if they were Hindus. Approximately 1 million people died, and 15 million were displaced. And relations between India and Pakistan remain very tense. They have a conflict over the territory of Kashmir in northern India or Pakistan. They both have claims to parts of its territory. They've fought 3 wars since the partition over that territory, and now that they both have nuclear weapons, there is a great deal of concern that these conflicts could escalate and be catastrophic. Also, in 1992, there was a great conflict which led to bloodshed over a mosque which was built on a location in India which is believed to be the birthplace of Rama, and so Hindus were very offended by this. There's also been, in recent years, a politicization of Hinduism through the BJP party, which is effectively a Hindu nationalist party. Now, India was founded as a democracy, which guarantees freedom of religion, and so is not officially a Hindu state, even though the majority of people living there are Hindus. However, the BJP, which has gained prominence in recent years as a political party, wants to assert the Hindu character of the Indian nation, and this has led to understandable concerns and conflicts with non-Hindus living in the country. Okay, so finally, to summarize the Hindu worldview, the nature of reality is that Brahman is the all-encompassing reality. Human nature, the Atman, the soul, is a part of Brahman, and the same is true of all living sentient beings. The problem is that we are trapped in samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, by our ignorance of this truth, and also our status in our lives is determined by our karma, our behavior in previous lives. The solution for Hindus is to achieve moksha, which is liberation, by following one or more of the main paths: karma, jnana, and bhakti marga.